What if the person who could have solved a murder was the one who got away with it for decades? What if the truth was hidden in plain sight, just behind a shopping center? A 14-year-old girl's death was left unsolved for 40 years, but the person responsible wasn't who we thought. This is the story of a murder that defied logic, a confession buried in silence, and a family forced to wait for justice. Christie Lynn Mullins was just 14 years old when her life was taken. She was a girl full of promise, living in Columbus, Ohio, a place that should have been filled with endless opportunities for a young girl like her. Christie had big dreams. She was a student with a bright future, loved by her family and friends. She was known for her vibrant personality and her ability to make anyone feel welcome. Wherever she went, people were drawn to her warmth. Her friends loved spending time with her because Christie was the kind of person who would make you laugh and brighten your day, no matter how bad things seemed. Christie wasn't just a classmate. She was the daughter that every parent would want, the sister who would do anything for her siblings, and the friend who stood by you no matter what. Her family remembers her as someone full of life, with a smile that could light up any room. At just 14, she was already full of energy, always ready to make plans for the future. She dreamed of becoming someone important, someone who could make a difference. She loved being around people and was always the first to help others. On the evening of August 23, 1975, Christie Lynn Mullins set out for what should have been a fun, ordinary night. She was supposed to meet up with some friends behind the Graceland Shopping Center for what she believed would be a cheerleading competition. But when Christie arrived, there was no competition to be found. She was alone, waiting, wondering where her friends had gone. The absence of any crowd, any competition, should have been a clue, but for Christie, it turned into a terrifying moment of uncertainty. As the minutes ticked by, something was terribly wrong. Christie's friend, Carol, arrived later to find her sitting by herself. When Carol asked around the shopping center about the so-called competition, no one knew anything about it. No one could confirm the event existed. Carol went back inside, thinking that maybe Christie had simply gone home. But when she returned to the spot where Christie had been, she was gone. It wasn't like Christie to just leave without telling someone, especially after waiting for something that didn't exist. It was the last time anyone would see her alive. Meanwhile, in the same area, a man named Henry H. Newell Jr. was walking with his wife and child, just a short distance away. Newell later came forward with a shocking statement about what he had witnessed. He claimed that as he passed the area behind the shopping center, he saw a man beating a young girl with a wooden plank. He described the scene vividly. The man, tall and skinny, was wearing cut-off shorts and was shirtless. The girl was being struck repeatedly. Newell said the moment his family approached, the man ran off. Newell and his family checked on the girl, who was lying on the ground. She was unresponsive. Terrified, Newell said he tried to help, covering her face with his shirt after he realized she had no pulse. Newell's statement was chilling, but it raised even more questions than answers. He described the scene in great detail, and his description of the man seemed to match some of the physical evidence. However, when police arrived, the scene was even more disturbing than they had imagined. Christie's body was found near the shopping center, her hands tied in front of her, her face beaten beyond recognition. She was unidentifiable at first, and she lay there, alone, in a wooded area. Her tank top was pulled down, and she was barefoot. The brutality of the scene struck investigators hard. But the most unsettling part was the realization that the witness, the one who had seen it all, wasn't just any observer. Newell had a criminal past, something that would soon complicate the investigation. He had been involved in past criminal activity, including an incident where he set fire to his own house, trying to collect insurance money. He had a history that made investigators question his credibility. Newell was called in for questioning, and while his account of the night seemed detailed, some of his statements didn't line up with the evidence found at the crime scene. For example, Newell claimed he had thrown the 2x4 that had been used in the attack some 20 to 25 feet after the attacker fled. However, no one could fully confirm his account of events. Still, despite his troubling history, Newell's story was enough to raise suspicion. He wasn't an easy person to ignore, and the details he provided about the attack were too vivid to dismiss right away. But the more police looked into Newell's testimony, the more contradictions they found. Was he telling the truth, or was he somehow involved in the crime? His version of events seemed too convenient, too rehearsed. Just 3 days after Christie's body was discovered behind the Graceland shopping center, the police made an arrest. They detained Jack Allen Carman, a man who had been living in Columbus and was known to have a mental disability. Carman's arrest came after a police officer noticed his striking resemblance to the composite sketch of the suspect. It didn't take long before Carman was questioned about the crime, and within hours of being detained, Carman confessed. His confession seemed to fit the details of the case: the attack with a wooden plank, the brutal beating. But there was a major issue. Carman's confession wasn't reliable. Many people believed that Carman had been pressured by the police to admit to the crime. He later said that he had been coerced into confessing, implying that he hadn't committed the murder. In fact, it seemed that Carman, who had a low IQ, was too easily influenced by the police. A later IQ test confirmed that Carman had an intellectual disability, making his confession even more questionable. It became clear that the police may have relied on the wrong person to close the case quickly. As a result, in 1977, Carman was acquitted. It was a blow to the investigation, leaving the authorities with nothing but a false confession and no leads to follow. Despite Carman's acquittal, the investigation had already stumbled in several key areas. The police had failed to properly investigate crucial evidence, leaving many questions unanswered. Even though the description of the real suspect, as given by Newell, seemed to match the physical traits of the man who had attacked Christie, the connection wasn't made at the time. Newell had told authorities that the attacker was tall, skinny, and shirtless, but no one connected this description to Newell himself, who was living in the area. It was as though the most important piece of the puzzle was right there in front of the investigators, but they didn't recognize it. Without a proper follow-up on the witness statements, and with Carman's wrongful confession overshadowing the case, the investigation stalled. No one connected the dots to Newell, and it would take years before anyone truly looked at his involvement more closely. The case, once full of hope, slowly slipped into the cold case files as time passed. And for years, the truth seemed as though it was locked away, out of reach, leaving Christie's family, friends, and the community with no closure. Unfortunately, at the time, no one realized how close they were to the real truth. The evidence was right there, hidden in plain sight, but it would take decades before the case would finally be cracked open again. As the years passed, the hope of finding Christie's killer started to fade. What had been a case filled with potential leads and fresh witness testimony soon turned into an unsolved mystery, a cold case that lingered in the background of the police department's files. Each year, without resolution, only made the pain more difficult for Christie's family. They waited, hoping for answers that never seemed to come. The idea that the case might remain unsolved forever became a painful reality for them. But in some cases, the truth has a way of resurfacing, even after many years have gone by. While the investigation stalled, a crucial detail about Newell's life was uncovered in 1977. His house was set on fire in what seemed like an attempt to claim insurance money. The fire was suspicious, and investigators soon learned that Newell had a history of similar criminal behavior. However, even with this new information, there was still no direct connection to Christie's murder. No one could definitively prove that Newell was involved, and the lack of evidence left law enforcement with little to go on. The case seemed destined to remain one of those unresolved mysteries that would never see justice. As time passed, Newell continued to live his life, and the police investigation grew more distant. Each year, the case was pushed further down the list of priorities, overshadowed by newer cases that seemed more solvable. Still, There were small hints that suggested Newell could have been involved in Christie's death, but no one could piece them together in a way that brought closure. The description Newell had given of the suspect seemed to match his own physical traits. The police had some of the pieces of the puzzle but couldn't make the connections. And so, the case went cold. It wasn't until 2013, nearly 4 decades after Christie's tragic death, that a key piece of the puzzle finally fell into place. Pam Brown, the niece of Henry H. Newell Jr., stepped forward with information that would change everything. For years, Pam had stayed silent, holding on to a painful secret that she feared would put her and her family in danger. But after Newell's death in 2013, Pam could no longer keep quiet. The weight of the truth had become too much to bear. In a bold move, Pam contacted the police and shared what she had known for so long. She revealed that Newell had confessed to his family about what had happened that night. According to Pam, Newell had told them years ago that he had tried to make a move on Christie. When she rejected him, things escalated quickly. In a fit of rage, he attacked her, and, as he put it, "I had to kill her." These chilling words revealed the truth that had been hidden for so many years. Pam explained that, at the time, she had kept this information to herself out of fear. Newell had been a dangerous man, and she feared what could happen to her and her family if she spoke up. She told the police, "I just want the Mullins family to know I held it in for many years. I regret it by all means, and I just want them to get closure." Pam's decision to come forward was a turning point in the case. After years of silence, the truth was finally being revealed, and the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. With Pam Brown's courageous decision to come forward in 2013, the police finally had the breakthrough they needed to reopen Christie Lynn Mullins' case. The new information provided a fresh lens through which investigators could re-examine the evidence that had been gathering dust for decades. For years, authorities had missed an essential detail of the physical description given by Henry H. Newell Jr. of the man he had seen behind the shopping center that night. After Pam's revelation, it became clear that Newell himself matched the description he had provided to the police years earlier. The connection between Newell and the description of the attacker was impossible to ignore. He was tall, thin, and had long hair, just like the man Newell had described. The investigators began to look at his involvement more closely, something they had failed to do before. They began to connect the dots that had been left scattered throughout the investigation. The physical evidence collected at the crime scene started to align with Newell's confession, further solidifying the case against him. The police started to see a clearer picture of what had happened that night. One of the key pieces of evidence was the 2x4, the weapon used to brutally attack Christie. Newell had described the plank as being used in the attack, and investigators now knew it was consistent with the forensic evidence found at the scene. The wood had been thrown by Newell in an attempt to cover his tracks, but when police examined the evidence, they found that the distance it had been thrown and its location lined up perfectly with Newell's actions that night. This discovery confirmed the truth. Newell had not only witnessed the crime but had been the one responsible for it. As investigators pieced together the physical evidence and Newell's role in the events, it became undeniably clear that Newell was the killer. His initial story about seeing someone else commit the crime was a fabrication. He had deceived the authorities for years, allowing an innocent man, Jack Allen Carmen, to take the blame for a crime he didn't commit. It was only through the persistence of the police and the courage of Pam Brown that the truth began to unravel. The case that had once seemed impossible to solve was finally coming together. After 40 years of waiting for answers, Christie Lynn Mullins' family finally received the closure they had been longing for. When the truth about Newell's involvement in Christie's death came to light, it was a moment that stirred mixed emotions within her family. While the discovery didn't bring Christie back, it was a crucial step in their healing process. For Christie's mother, Maureen, the grief of losing her daughter had never truly gone away. No amount of time could erase the pain, but knowing the truth brought some sense of peace. At least now, the family could finally bury the questions that had haunted them for decades. They could finally look back on their daughter's life, not just her death, and begin to heal from the years of uncertainty. Christie's family members spoke openly about the emotional toll the years of not knowing had taken on them. For Maureen, the years of unanswered questions were unbearable. She had spent years wondering if she had missed something, if there was something she could have done to protect her daughter. The truth was painful, but it gave her the one thing she had always wanted: answers. In an emotional statement, Maureen expressed her relief that, after so long, justice was finally being served. But the sadness was still there. "We lost so much time," she said. "But now we know, and that's all we could ask for." Meanwhile, the Columbus Police Department, who had been involved in the initial investigation, issued a formal public apology. In a statement, the department acknowledged the mistakes made during the investigation, especially the failure to fully follow up on the witness testimony and the missed connection with Newell. "We failed the Mullins family, and we regret that," the statement read. The apology was an important moment, not just for the Mullins family but for the community at large. The police had made serious errors, but they were willing to own up to their missteps. For many, it was a bittersweet recognition that the truth had come so late. The impact of the case on the community was profound. For those who had known Christie, the truth was a revelation. People who had watched Christie grow up, classmates, neighbors, and friends, were shaken by the realization that someone so CLO SE to the community could have committed such a crime and gone undetected for so long. Many spoke of their shock, disbelief, and sorrow, not just for the family's loss, but for the community's failure to protect one of its own. However, alongside this shock, there was also a sense of relief. The case had rocked the entire town, and while no one could undo the harm done, they could celebrate the long-awaited justice that finally came to Christie's family. The story of Christie Lynn Mullins is one of heartbreak and justice, and ultimately, a long-awaited resolution. After 40 years of silence, the truth finally came to light. What started as a case with too many unanswered questions and too many wrong assumptions ended with one powerful act of courage. Pam Brown, Newell's niece, made the decision to speak up, bringing a decades-old secret to the surface. Her bravery helped uncover the truth and gave Christie's family the answers they had spent so long waiting for. But the journey didn't end there. Christie's case teaches us an important lesson about the power of persistence and the need for justice, no matter how long it takes. It shows us that sometimes the truth remains hidden, but with time and the right people speaking out, it will always find a way to surface. While it's impossible to undo the pain of losing Christie, her family can now begin to heal knowing the truth. They've endured so much, and yet they have shown an incredible amount of strength in the face of years of uncertainty. But the fight for justice isn't over. Christie's case reminds us that there are countless others who are still waiting for closure. There are unsolved mysteries and unanswered questions in every community. This story is a call to action for all of us. If you know something, if you've seen something, speak up. You never know how your words could change someone's life or bring justice to a case that's gone cold. In cases like these, every piece of information counts, no matter how small it may seem. Justice doesn't have a set timeline, but it's always worth the wait. Christie's family finally found peace, and we must continue to fight for others who are still waiting for theirs. If you have information about an unsolved case, don't stay silent. Your voice might be the one that finally brings justice home. Thank you for watching this powerful story of perseverance, courage, and the pursuit of truth. If you believe in justice, share this story, and let's keep working together to ensure that every voice is heard and every case is solved.